Yeah, so what's going on, y'all? We got the brother Ike up in here once again. Uh Definitely appreciate him for giving us the time out of his schedule to come up on this live. But what's going on with you, brother?
I am doing well. I am doing well. It's been a crazy week or past few days, but that's kind of normal. Riding chaos out here, but no complaints. How about yourself?
Oh yeah, I'm doing good. Like I just started my new job, had got a new car because the last car caught on fire and all that crazy stuff. But everything good, man. Um you say
You didn't
you're
change the oil or something? I'm sorry.
yeah,
Go ahead.
yeah. I changed the. I see you was gonna say that. Yes, I changed the oil. It just they said something about the motor just blew up or something like that. But I got full coverage insurance, so we good. I'm alive. Everything good. Got a new car. Been compensated for it. So yeah, I'm good though. But you said that it been hectic for the past week. What is it? Your business or like where you located at right now? If you mind me asking.
Um, as in, well, I'm in the Bay Area, in in
I
my
don't know what that is.
San Francisco Bay
Oh,
Area.
okay. San
Yeah, my
Francisco Bay.
bad.
Nah,
California
you
people are
good.
kind of like we just assume, oh yeah, of course, there's only one bay in the world. So yeah, I'm in the San Francisco Bay Area. I'm in my office. So when you say, or when I said it's been hectic, but then I ended it by saying that it's always kind of that way, and usually, but there's waves and there's peaks though, right? So it's not like one constant level of hectic, and it tends to come with when I'm tackling something new in the business realm of things, stretching my mind, maybe a new client, a new kind of job that I've never done before, and burning the midnight oil a little bit more than usual, that kind of thing, right? And then it peaks and then it kind of calms down again. And so, like, past few days, I've been in that kind of peak.
Okay, I understand now. That makes sense. Yeah, that's the lifestyle right there, though. That's what keeps the gears moving.
Indeed, indeed. Got to keep pushing.
Yes, sir. Yeah. So this is the same thing over here. Just definitely been tuning in on your lives. Checking you out. Shouts out to lead attorney and you. Like definitely been making stuff popping about situations and other meditations lives. That's amazing what y'all doing over there in that sector.
Yeah. What it is kind of interesting, especially the lead attorney's rise in this space, if you will, has been interesting to watch because apparently, he's been making videos for a while now, talking about divorce, this, that, and the other. And then O'Shea kind of gave him a little bump and a little boost. And then he was able to kind of just ride the wave of making certain kinds of reactions where he can bring in his kind of legal expertise. And I think that where there's legal, or where there are legal issues, is going to be drama around, right? So drama is good for entertainment and for selling. Plus, okay, he is a good, like, he's very good at presenting, right? He's very good at like talking, whether it be his live videos or the pre-recorded videos. And he's also pretty sharp, right? He's a very smart guy, can think on his feet. He's trained. He's got 20 years of experience as an attorney, so on and so forth. But I think he's feel it's there's no other person too like in that particular niche in this space that we're in. So it's like boom, he just kind of slotted right in, kind of grew, pretty fast, and maybe he might be reaching $100,000 soon, 100,000 subscribers. I mean, uh, and that kind of a thing. You never know.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, yeah, he is his niche, like the excitement and like how you said, the drama, but behind it is educational because
Yes.
when I did my research, I'm from South Carolina and like I know about that situation that, Charlamagne got going on, but I looked up, he made me go back and I looked up on the laws and they said that in South Carolina, you could hypothetically speaking marry a 14-year-old, and once you marry
Hmm.
that 14-year-old, it's not considered, you know what I'm saying? That
Hmm.
just what I'm saying is that for him bringing up these topics made me go back and like read the laws and actually look at it. You get what I'm saying?
I see. What are your thoughts about that, though? I mean,
Thoughts?
What are your thoughts about what you found out regarding the age of legal consent? Plus, beyond the age of legal consent, there is also well, if they get parental consent. I'm assuming in South Carolina they say, well, if the
Oh
parents
yeah,
agree, then you can marry. I
yeah.
mean,
I mean, because to be honest, at that situation is like, if the person's 15 years old, they get consent from the parents and they get consent from that child, like a 15-year-old person. Then
mhm.
that's good. And then they said something about if the person is 14 years old, they said there's some type of, it's actually in fine print. They said you could get married and it's not considered, in wrongdoing. That's actually in the fine print on South Carolina laws when I look into it. Because when our lead attorney been going live about it, I had took the initiative to go back and start reading the laws. I'm like, hold on, like nobody ain't talk, like there's loopholes, you know what I'm saying, in the law thing.
Well, yeah, well, 100%. You got to draw a line somewhere. These things are not black and white, right? And even the things that are black and white, they came from somewhere. If it's the Ten Commandments or whatever it may be, there's always a starting point, a line where you draw, in the sand. So if your thing is 18 years old, right? Okay, what is the difference between? And I'm using this as an example. Okay, don't come for me. All right.
I feel you.
The whole point I'm trying to make here is that one needs to understand that rules are made by other people, by us, in order to try to best approximate something which we think will work best if everybody operated that way. But it doesn't mean that there is a right answer. You know what I mean? It's like, well, you got to say something like, okay, well, here's the line, 18 years old. Well, what was the difference between 11:59 when she was 17, and now it's 12 a.m. Now she's 18. In other words, these kinds of sharp
Yeah.
demarcations, right? You got to draw the line somewhere. Is it wrong? You just waited one more minute and now it's different. Point being, you got to draw these lines and you say, well, if everybody acts this way, statistically, things are going to be better off for us. So you got to understand. Here's something about all kinds of knowledge. I know I'm just going off on some kind of tangent right now, but
Right.
knowledge and wisdom in general really comes when you start looking at the arbitrary nature of things. What I mean is when you start looking at the foundations, the choice part, where, okay, now we got to choose. Okay, well, we got to choose what's north, what's south, what's east, what's west, what's up, what's down, what's right, what's wrong, what's the age of consent, what's not, what's considered to be the border of this country and what's not considered to be the border of this country, what's considered to be physics and what's considered to be chemistry. There are many things like that where we have to draw the line. They're called axioms, right? Even in mathematics, you have to have your axioms. You got to make a decision and then you operate within that framework. Real wisdom is understanding, oh, we made a decision. We created the game that we're playing, right? The game then wasn't handed to us by something else. We decided the game, because when you look at different societies and then you look at it across time, many different peoples have decided to draw the lines different places and play different games.
I get you saying like other cultures like is 12 and there's some that's 14. But what you're saying, this is another wall, a barrier. It reminded me of the Truman Show that I watched recently with Jim
Mm.
Carrey. What you're saying is the axiom, I pronounced that right?
Yeah, axiom. Just
Axiom.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Gotcha. So what you're saying is that you have an understanding of how the game was created. It's not universally written. So you breaking past that wall right there and you seeing it from a capital U understanding. But many people don't realize that that understanding exists. You kind of get what I'm saying? See, that's where it becomes difficult with you.
Yeah, many people don't understand don't realize that understanding exists, and it doesn't necessarily. It's not necessary for them. In other words, let's say when I say it's not necessary for them, I mean the fact that they can't is not a problem. It's not for everybody. Not everybody is a philosopher, right? And not everybody is a philosopher king. Not everybody's supposed to be drawing those borders and putting the borders of the Truman Show around and saying these are the rules of the game. If you actually allowed people to think that they could, you'll have just pure chaos, right? So generally, that's why religions and these other kinds of things, or any kind of culture, tradition that is enforced helps the majority of people to sustain a particular kind of order. Now you're going to have the kinds of people on the side that know where the lines are, and maybe it's not best for them because they can handle a little bit more freedom. They can handle a little bit more chaos. They know that they're just being put in an artificial cage, and this cage is for the sheep, right? But I'm not a sheep, but too tough luck. You were born that way. You could see the cage and all that kind of stuff. But the thing is, you should be wise enough to know that if you start saying, nah, let's break it up, which tends to happen in modern day times, for example. Oh, let's break down the walls of what is considered this particular gender role or not. Let's break down the walls on what's considered a particular gender even. Who's to say this and who's to say that? Call it postmodernism, right? That kind of thing. When you start doing that, where does it lead? There's a lot of chaos, especially in between down the road when things start breaking up. Now, some people can benefit a lot from it, but the majority tends to suffer, right? Some people who can ride that chaos, the people who saw the wall, that artificial wall there the whole time, and then now it's broken, they're like, no biggie. I'm just going to, I'm going to start selling shovels or cement or whatever. I'm going to build fake walls. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I'm going to be a charlatan. I'm going to start a cult. I'm going to start a new religion. There are people that can really make hay with that situation, but the majority of people tend to suffer because majority of people cannot handle that kind of chaos. You have like mental illness. You got I'm not happy and I'm going to divorce you now. All that kind of crap is because people decide to break down these lines of the games that we were playing before.
So your whole understanding, so what you are saying from my understanding is that some people, not everybody is here to like draw the lines or see past the walls and all that. It's actually not philosophers and people who are in the game and all that. Like, I get what you're saying overall with that whole situation, but I got a question for you. The people who see past the walls, or was that, I'm not gonna say inherited, like, what, in your opinion, what do you believe make those certain people be able to see past those walls, if you get what I'm saying? Tough one, ain't it?
It really isn't. It's not that it's tough. It is almost like one of those self-defining things. Okay, really, we call it many different. We call it. It's psychological, right? Let me create an analogy. What makes certain people able to dunk and others not? Some people are able to run marathons and others not. Okay, we say, oh, physical differences, right? You grow up in this particular mountain in Kenya, you're gonna win the marathons. The Japanese people could try to train and they're never gonna surpass you, right? Same thing when it comes to mental and psychological framework. We tend not to see it, but we know it's there, right? Okay.
Yes.
So, and we get touchy and feely about that stuff, but people are not created equal at all. The same way that the Japanese are not the particular Kenyans from that particular hill that win the marathon. The same way that you could train. You're never going to be Usain Bolt or LeBron. That thing also exists in psychological and consciousness and intellectual grounds as well. Like, some people are just able to see, operate, and also deal with the chaos. Think for example, we all know about goalpost shifting, right?
Yes.
So what happens to people when they do that goalpost shifting? Okay, what tends to happen is, and I'm just naming one dimension right now. There's one dimension which we all know, which is the IQ one, right? You got a high IQ, you can see certain things, you can make certain logical kinds of connections. But there are others which tend to be more of an emotional willingness to contend with chaos. So contend with chaos, contend with truth that may stab you in the identity. So you come to somebody and you tell them, hey, this thing that you're doing is wrong, right? Rather than say, yes, it's wrong, and then maybe say, but I'm going to do it anyways, or yes, it's wrong, but blah, 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 whatever it is. They shift the goalposts and say, no, it's not wrong. Who's to say it's wrong? Who hurt you? You can't find that kind of thing, right? Why are they doing that? It's because they literally don't have the capacity to stand in that fire, right, of the truth. That is a consciousness capacity, right? And some people can stand in that fire and they can take all kinds of layer of chaos. They can see the wall over there and they can see the fakeness of the game. They can see all that stuff and it doesn't have to break down the identity, because other people's identity is based upon the stories they've been told, the stories about the game that is being played and their role that they're playing in the game. Some of us are able to be like, there ain't no real roles. This is all chaos. It's all crazy and right, wrong, so on and so forth. I'm going to stand in there and I'm going to accept it. So that is another dimension in which it varies. The one is just pure intelligence. The other is this kind of emotional willingness to stand in the truth.
That was bars right there. Like how you said, like some people just the conscious, the capacity or the capability they don't have to like perceive that. I get what you're saying. And like it's funny how you say when you say what you're doing is wrong and they don't say, oh, it's wrong, I'm doing it anyway. They'd be like, who hurt you? It's like a knee-jerk reaction. It's human behavior.
Yeah, and it's rather common, okay? There's also this kind of it's called cognitive dissonance, which I'm sure you've heard before, where people just hold these two different ideas that are contradictory. They almost like they live in separate islands in their heads. They never quite connect them, right? So number one, it's actually difficult to make, we've all pushed our mental framework, our mental machine to its limit. And we know what it feels like to be like, oh, wait, hold on. Well, what did you say, Michelle? What's the. So just imagine what it feels like when you're trying to solve a tough mental problem, maybe a logic problem. Maybe somebody asks you, well, who's my uncle's third wife's sister's niece, blah, blah, blah. And you're like, whoa, wait, my uncle's third wife. For some people, a lot of things feel like that in their head, right? Where it's like, for them to connect all these separate things where they're contradicting each other, it's too much. So, and why do it anyways? It makes me happy that I'm living this contradictory, or I'm living out these contradictory lives, or saying these things that don't connect. And then when you say something about it, you attack them in their personality or their identity. And then they have these reactions in their body. They literally, their body gets hot, and rather than sit and be like, let me just chill in this and say, yes, you're correct. They're like, no, this, that, and the other. So, of course, those people are not supposed to be led anywhere near the walls, anywhere near the boundaries, anywhere near the rules of the game. Those are people who are just going to stay. They need to be ruled, okay? People need that. And exactly. I'm not necessarily excluding myself from it, wisdom will tell you that the group needs that. And yeah, go ahead.
Oh, my bad. Well, since you say you're not excluding yourself, I know this right here will be a good self-reflection of you right here, because you and I know that the labels, we all know labels don't exist, but we know we need labels for today's society. And what I mean by that is like for you, my brother, and for me, what they label both of us are, what is it? Black people, indigenous people, right? But when we go deep into death, that's what I'm saying. You get what I'm saying? Like, how do I put this way? My question is, are you aware of the labels in the identity that society put upon us? And are you aware of how it kind of moved the goalposts and how it shifts?
Yes. And people, this thing, it is a tool that can be used in the hands of somebody that knows how to move the pieces around. It's almost like a handle you have on somebody. Like, I'm going to put this label on you, right? And then whenever I say this magic word, whenever I say ADOS, you jump, right? Whenever I do pull this little string, you follow. Whenever I say vote for the Democratic Party, you do it, or whatever it may be, right? Whatever it may be, I'm not coming for anybody's particular beliefs, but you know what I mean. These different identities, and they exist in many regards. One is obviously the ethnic one. The other one is the sexual one. Another one could be your height, even and then you have socioeconomic status, like people of a particular kind who grew up in a particular place. They have all these different little labels that can be placed. However, consciousness, generally speaking, doesn't matter, right? Now, we can go around controlling people with this thing. That's number one. But to the degree, and we can use it to go along to get along, right? We can relate with other people by speaking the correct code, saying the right kinds of things, identifying them within a certain way, go along to get along, get things done in the world. However, if you are at all interested, of which I said not everybody needs to be interested or even has the capacity to go down this line, if you're interested in breaking these walls down, which build up your identity, because they're out there, but they're also in you, right? They're in you. That's why you jump when they when they say the magic words.
Oh yeah.
So if you are interested in breaking it down, then you need to be able to move, always be able to expand out and say, both in time, in space, right? By in time and space, I mean, just because you're here, born now, and just because you're here in the United States, doesn't make you different from any other entity that exists in the universe, right? Per se, that may have been called a human being, or that shares carbon atoms with yours, or that has ever shared consciousness or whatever, whether it be Moses or Buddha or whomever. It's like, why am I going to keep myself in a box? Oh yes, I put on this particular kind of clothing and I shake their hands in this kind of way and speak this particular language so that we can facilitate transactions, exchange of value, so on and so forth. But you need to be able to go down and know who you are, which has nothing to do with these external things, including you're black, you're this, you're that, you're this age, you're in this particular geography. No, these things are timeless, they're boundless, they're spaceless. And it's not easy to break these, but we all know the path to break them. We all know what to do.
Exactly. Now, what you're saying is deep right there, because you and I is like with these false labels, because once again, you gotta be coherent to it, but you still gotta know yourself, which is being, not this external stuff right here. Like, you know how, like, once again, they be like, I'm black, you black, but we really look at ourselves and we really go off of the color scale of that. You see that as a difference, but still it's kind of correct. You get what I'm saying? So it's all duality. But what I believe you're saying is that just know yourself overall, the existence within the timeless and the space, right? Am I correct?
Yeah, because you used the word there. You said being, right? And
Yes, sir.
being is fundamental. It's foundational before any of these other things. And are you there? It's kind of like when God was asked his name, he said, I am.
Okay.
And then they're like, you are what? You are this. I am. I'm not this. I'm not that. I'm not up. I'm not. I am. In other words, because we know am and be are the same kind of word. It's like saying I be. I am. That's it. So being able to get down to that, not that you be able to hover in that and float in that place, like some monk in deep meditation 24/7, but you gotta at least know the path to go there, because it'll get you through many of the slings and arrows that you're gonna face in the world. Because the slings and arrows are shot where? They're shot at your identity. They're shot at you're a man, you're black, but there is no arrow that can hit I am. It just goes through. It's like there's nothing there. You can't catch it.
That's powerful right there. And then the fact that you're able to be I am or I be and still be coherent with that identity that society has put upon, the external forces of you. So you're going back and forth and you still have that gap, that space of I am or being. That right there is like a pure talent.
It is now I believe that every human being, right, has that space. Okay. For some people it's like 2 inches long, some people it's like mile. What I mean that space is like they're able to traverse down to the I am, and then also go deep into having an identity in order to transact again, because these identities, these things are tools. They're ways of operating in the world. They're borders, okay? Border around yourself, border around your identity group, border around a particular kind of language, border around a particular kind of meaning. The border around, because we talking about these borders, right? The Truman Show, the borders, the walls, the rules. Where do you draw the lines, right? So in order to be effective in the world and to get things done, right? And when I say get things done, getting things done is not trivial, okay? So it's not a case that, oh, you should just float away into nothingness, right? No, you still got to get things done. And the people who can get things done perhaps the most effectively are those that can stretch out that space, go to the I am, and then also go to the identity world. Take, for example, I think Martin Luther King was very scared of jail, right? I read it in a book and I heard it somewhere else. I read in Andrew Young's book, one of his biggest fears was to go into jail. And until he was able to get over that, if he did not get over that fear or had to face that fear, then he would have not become great. How do you get over these fears? Because these fears, again, whether, are on your identity, they have to do with things, the external things that have been put on you, and also that you put on yourself. So it's almost like there's this bag that everybody is born with, okay? It's the identity bag. And you got to fill it up with stuff. You fill it up with a name. You fill it up with the story of your family. Even before you were born, the play was getting acted, right? And then you get born, and now you're assigned a role in this play, which is written. You are young Grump in the family of blah, 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 and this is how we do things over here in the Midwest. Your grandfather was this, so on and so forth. So you start filling up this identity bag, or you could call it ego, right, with all these different little trinkets that you carry around with you. And sometimes it starts getting heavier and heavier. It gets bigger and bigger, and it can be targeted. It can be attacked. It can drag you down. It can be a problem. The trick is knowing how to be conscious that, oh, this is a bag that you put those things in there, and you can remove, keep it as light as possible. You cannot exist without the bag, though, right? You do need an identity, okay? But you need to know that it being tied to your BMW, maybe not. It being tied to whatever, maybe that's not necessary. The leaner you can make your identity, the more you can dodge the blows, right? Hence, he needed to be like, I'm going to get over my association of jail with whatever associations he had with it, right? And I'm going to be able to dodge that blow, and then I'm going to be able to achieve things in the real world. So you see the connection there. Like, he's trying to achieve things in the real world, but his real world identity is blocking him from achieving things in the real world. So you got to strip it back down to the I am, in order to actually come forward and, deliver a punch, if you will.
And that's right. You well said. And once you talk about you need that identity bag, but you can't let it be attacked. Like, you can't let it attack the being of you. So when you say that, it reminds me of, like, let's say it's prejudice slurs being used. And this, I just recently overcame this. I'm still working on it. It's like they could use it's made up, It's not, it don't stick, but they make it believe that it's supposed to stick towards the identity. And therefore they make people believe that the identity that's built upon them is a permanent them, like a permanent ego or something. You get what I'm saying? But it's not.
Yeah, because it's magic, right? And that's why I say magic words. Like, I'm going to put this thing on you, this battery on your back. And when I push this button, when I push this remote control, I can move you now, right? Yeah. So that's how it tends to work. You can look at it, or there are many examples that can kind of help people that have helped me over the years to kind of see how this thing works. There could be a picture on the wall, a picture of, I don't know, Jesus Christ. Jesus. Why Jesus, specifically? Let's pick up white Jesus on the wall, and then you have somebody from the jungle in the Amazon. Don't know nothing about Jesus. He walks in the room. He looks at the picture. May not even recognize that it's a human being, right? And then you have another person raised not so far away from that same Amazon place, somewhere, let's say in Brazil, raised Catholic. And they see that picture of Jesus. What happens? literal physical things happen in their body, right? Blood pressure might go up or down. Things happen in their body, in their actual physiology, because of the magic of this identity marker, this picture, this kind of thing. Okay. So when you start seeing how this magic happens and you see that, well, hey, that person didn't get affected by it, but I can be affected by it, then then it behooves you to then watch the power that this thing has over you, okay, so that you can minimize its effects, because people will use it against you and you can use it to sabotage yourself as well. So when you're like, somebody that does not know the word, someone doesn't know the N word, or for them it meant something else, or whatever it may be, or they grew up with a different kind of racism or different kind of tribalism, right? And then that word gets thrown and it just passes through them. And then for you, what happens? Physical things happen in your body. Blood pressure goes up. Back of your ear gets hot. You start seeing red. It's like magic. So you want to be able to, at the same time, you want to be able to address that thing. But in order to be free enough to make the right decisions on how you're going to address it, you don't want that magic working in you, because that thing will then cause you to make. You don't want magical decisions being made for you.
Exactly. You don't want to be. What you saying magical, in other words, could be interpreted in society as like crash out, or like violent, or there's many different reactions people who that affect them will react to it. But most of the time, it's like that battery. I put that thing on your back, and I say the magic words, and see, exactly, they're acting just like you get what I'm saying, the identity that they labeled, which is made up. But yeah,
it's one of the biggest things, okay, because we're talking about these things that are there, the constructs that are there, one of which is the identity, right? Because these borders, let's say even national identity, ethnic identity, all that stuff, it's out there, and again, also it's in here, okay? In a well-ordered society, very few people actually need to pay attention to it. What I mean is, things are going to flow normally, right? You have your role, they have their role, and these roles mesh, right? No one needs to question, but why did you put this role on me? Because it works well. However, that's not the world we live in, right? It's almost like we've eaten of the fruit of the knowledge of good and evil, right? Our eyes are open, okay? And sadly, some people's eyes are not open enough, but it doesn't matter, because now there's chaos. The roles don't operate well anymore. The traditions don't keep things such that people play their roles to keep the borders. So I'm going to say it again, that there are some people, okay, that benefit. And if you were asking, okay, let me just give you ask questions about what's the differences, okay? There's a difference between, MBTI, like that, the personality test. Have you ever done a personality test?
yeah. It said I was the architect. I think it's ENTJ-I, if I remember.
Okay. So you're ENTJ. Okay.
I believe so, like an architect, but go ahead.
So I'm a INTJ myself, right? So, which be the introverted version of that stuff.
Correct.
Of yourself. So the N there means intuitive. Okay. Now, if you're an intuitive person, which by the way, it's there are fewer of us than the sensors, right? Because you're either intuitive or you're a sensor. If you're an intuitive person, you can take advantage of the chaos, right? You can, in this world where the walls are shifting and moving, all this craziness, you can kind of see it, because you naturally kind of operate in that place, in that conceptual place where things are not so solid for you. That's just kind of one way to put it that way. So you asked about the differences and the people like who can take advantage, whom cannot, whom can see the borders and whom cannot, and so on and so forth. One place to start is intuitives can, and intuitives, and anyone listening, this is not woo, this is a cognitive function thing. I'm not saying, intuitive, you can see that. It's like, no, it's a way of looking at the world. It's a cognitive function thing, right? So intuitives they can ride a lot of chaos because for them, things are not solid. They're always going down to the foundational, to the conceptual. So it's not like, oh, I am this. It's like, well, I am this, or I could be that. Who was to say, we are always looking at the border of the game. And we know there's a border. We don't just assume that things are the way they are. We know that they had to have been set up. So you can handle things breaking up a little bit. You can handle a little bit of chaos, and you can take advantage of it. So this time is almost like the intuitive time, because chaos and out of chaos goes from time to time. It's almost like lines up with what I was talking about, my particular weeks, right? Peak chaos and then goes down. But also in human history, there's times of peak chaos and then times of everything is orderly. And you can imagine even yourself that's not the time where you are at most advantage, right? Where you have the most advantage, where the rules are being followed by everybody. Everybody is playing their role. Everything is black and white. And you're like, okay, I can hang, but I don't have any special advantage. When things go chaotic, then the intuitives can take a lot of advantage, and they tend to be the ones that are able to lead in a chaotic time, because the sensors, they need, anyways, I'm not going to go into what the sensors need, but intuitives can rule in the chaotic time. They can lead in the chaotic time. They can take advantage of chaotic times.
And once again, like how you said, intuitive, you saying that's a cognitive function though, right? Correct?
Yes. Intuitive is a cognitive function, which basically, one way to put it is like this. A good way to describe things is to talk about the thing that they're not, right? So you're either an intuitive or you're a sensor. What you said, ENTJ, is like, okay, extrovert, intuitive, thinking, judging, right? So in that end part, which is the intuitive part, you could also be a sensor. A sensor, for example, is the kind of person that is more likely, in other words, you learn from experience. They gotta look at like many different cups. If I were to look at the cup example, right? And then before they get the idea, okay, cup, right? For you more have like the idea of cup or the conceptual landscape. You're always trying to find out the link between things. Like what is the framework? What are the rules? But sensors are looking at individual sensory input, like red, round, this, that, and then through a process of induction, they build a concept. You are more always just looking for like, okay, I get that, but I don't care about it. But how is it related in general? What is the concept behind it? What ties all these things together? So as a result, you're more able to deal with chaos, because you don't need to have seen 10,000. In other words, a sensor, for example, is more likely to be like, I need to have seen someone that looks like myself. I need to have seen a black doctor in order for me to kind of know that it's possible. Intuitive probably doesn't understand what that even means, to be like, why do I need to see that kind of thing, right?
Oh, okay. Well, I'm glad that you broke it down like that, because that helped me have a capital U understanding of what you're saying. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, so it's like a sensor needs individual sensory input examples, and then they gather it up, and then they have the idea. An intuitive can, let's say, in between, there's a farmer. Let me use this doctor example. You have something called a farmer, and then on the other end, you have something called a doctor. They can kind of like figure out, farmer, doctor, everything in between. I can draw the general shape of the differences between these things, and then I could just start to then conceptualize in my head. Would I like to be an architect? No. I may never have seen an architect or know what an architect is, but that's not how I think. That's not how I consume it. That's not how I do cognitive function. I don't have to see it. I don't have to touch it. I don't have to taste it, smell it. I just do it in my head. Intuitives are drawing these lines in their head. What's the disadvantage of an intuitive? They tend not to be, literally, their senses are not very strong. Literally.
What do you mean by that example?
So one kind of, let's say me, for example, I'm an INTJ, okay? That's introverted, intuitive, thinking, judging, right? Now, there are ways that there are further breakdowns in the function, okay? But not to get too deep with it, there's this function called extroverted sensing, which means how you kind of deal with the world, how you can pick up yourself and act in the world, versus in being inward all the time. Okay, the sensors are able to pick up and go. Intuitives tend to procrastinate more, right? A sensor, you give him a task, he may not really understand what he's doing. Okay, and I'm not saying sensors are dumb. I'm just saying that an intuitive is more likely to want to understand or scratch his head or procrastinate. They can't just really engage with the world, with the objects, with the things. Like that's the senses, right? Your five senses, what your eyes see, what your nose smell, what your and all this kind of external stuff. They're more in their head, hence they tend to maybe procrastinate a little bit more. They need a little bit more knowledge in order to deal with things, right? But the sensor, it's like, cup, box, whatever. I'm just going to go do it. I'm just going to take the hammer and just going to start slamming it. And intuitive is still scratching his head thinking. But because of the power of consciousness and thought, the intuitive, if they use their powers correctly, they can move more vastly in this unencumbered space of the head.
That's good. And once again, what he's explaining for the sensors would be like a box and a cup, and they operate with their hands like that, is, and compared to somebody intuitive in their head, thinking, to have a little bit of procrastination. If y'all try to use judgment on their intelligence on both sides, that's still subjective overall. Am I correct?
Yes, that's why intelligence, in terms of the judgment, in terms of, let me just give you an IQ test. Because the IQ test it's one of those things where when it's really low, it matters, right? Like if you got an IQ like 80 or below, that kind of stuff, it matters. Even the military won't take you. You cannot function. Okay. But when it comes to actual outcomes in the world, ENTJs, by the way, are some of the most successful people. They're not necessarily the smartest. Some of the smartest people are like the INTPs, INFPs, ENTPs, INTJ. Sounds like freaking crazy, whatever I'm saying right now. But basically what I'm saying is this. It's not about, the ENTJ is the ENTJ's IQ predicts or determines his level of success. It's the arrangement of his different cognitive functions. And ENTJ is intuitive, okay, but he's got enough sensory stuff. You're not like other kinds of intuitives where the whole sensory stuff, which is that extroverted sensing thing, which I talked about, is completely, they're like completely blind to it. You got enough of that. And there's this other thing called TE, which is extroverted thinking, which is about how do things work, okay? You may not use logic, but you use what's the working of the thing. I know how to get an outcome. I don't do the logic of just like if then because X Y Z just kind of thinking logically. But it's like, if I want to get there, I know how to get there though. I know the best path most likely, and so on and so, and I can get there. So these things are not necessarily just tied to IQ. You could have a lower IQ than some INFP guy. Very sharp. He knows all the logic in and out, but he cannot act. Okay, he cannot move in the world. He's kind of blind to certain modalities of, okay, well, this is the best way to make it work. I'm gonna go out there and actually gonna do it. So that particular parameter, which is IQ, is not the best way of really judging how people are going to be successful in the world. There's more moving parts to cognitive functions than that.
Yeah, this is remind me of the talk I had with Bobby Cash. Shouts out to him, but it's like cross interjection with an intelligence. So my question to you is about emotional intelligence, EQ. If somebody has a greater output on that.
So EQ is one of those things which is, I think it cuts across many aspects of how one operates, right? But one level is, it's called FE, which is extroverted feeling, which is the concern about, let's say, fairness, how other people feel, how to create a certain kind of cohesion in the group. And then some people don't have, an INTJ, for example, we're notorious as one of the least FE people out there, right? I don't care about. It's like
go ahead.
Let's look at two salespeople, for example.
Yeah.
The sales one, I do sales, okay. I do persuasion, I do communication, I do talking to people to try to get certain outcomes, right? You just got to do that if you're an entrepreneur of any kind. But I do it professionally, and then also I do it for the company that I run and all that kind of stuff. So you can have two salesmen, one like me, which doesn't have FE. In other words, one way to put it would be, I don't really have a lot of emotion, what you may call traditional emotional intelligence. Okay, to me, it's a some kind of equation there as how to. I know the handles, I know where the batteries are and the things to say, but it's not coming from it's not a function that I feel in there. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
the other salesperson, when they meet the client and they ask, "Hey, how was your daughter's softball game?" They actually care about the person's daughter and the person's softball game. I don't give a crap.
Honest. Go ahead.
I care neither about your daughter, nor her softball game, nor any of the crap you people are involved in, okay? I don't care. And it's just true. There's no need to be all that kind of whatever about it. This is how INTJs are. I don't care about all the... Does it mean I hate your daughter? No. Does it mean I won't be nice to your daughter? No, it doesn't mean any of that. It just means really, I don't care. I don't care about that. So,
yes,
the one with emotional intelligence, guess what he's able to do? He's able to keep the people in the room, in the funnel, right? But he may not be the best at closing. I'm better at closing. Closing is more of a technical dance. And that's where I can come in and do the fine surgery. You don't slap people's back and rub their back to close it. You keep them. Prospecting is good for that. Where you're actually interested. You go to the gala, the parties, the so on and so forth. You talk to different kinds of people. You actually call them and you care. When they call you, you're like, oh my God, Dave, it's been a while. They actually care. Right? So, and you need those kinds of people within that kind of sales organization to keep people around in the funnel, keep prospects happy, so on and so forth. Perhaps customer service. But then you may have somebody else who can surgically close, and you don't need FE for that. So I'm the guy that'll come in after everything has been set up, and I'm going to have the knowledge because I'm the INTJ, so introverted thinking. I can do the thing. I can do that dance. I can dance all around the thinking space, the conceptual space, the intuitive space, and close them.
Yes, that's correct. And that's all that matters within our perspective of it, in the business perspective of it. That's what all really matters, honestly.
Mm-hmm. It's and then there are many other kinds of. So I want anyone listening now to kind of understand, because this thing about cognitive functions helps a lot in terms of human understanding, how we understand each other, so that we're not so much at each other's throats. You know what? There's some people whom, for intuitives, for example, and I think because intuitives are rare, and especially INTJs, okay? INTJs are about 2% of the population or less, I think.
That's true. That's correct.
So before I knew that, I used to assume most people, I thought everybody was like me, but they're just pretending.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
I was like, you guys know what you're doing. You guys can see, but you guys are just like acting like, but no, now I know that intuitive thing which we do where we're able to kind of pierce through an argument and get to the point somehow. And somehow some people can't quite see what we're doing. It's not because they're being stubborn. It's not because whatever. They have to go through a different path. Okay? They take different steps. Some people are also what they call TI polar. That logic thing, they don't got it at all. Me, I'm FE polar. That caring about your daughter thing, I don't got it at all. So how people judge me, they're like, you're a bad person, right? You don't care about my daughter in a softball game. But you get what I'm saying? That's the judgment that, and then me, I'm judging them like, God damn, you're stupid. You know, like,
It's not, okay. I
right?
feel you. Yeah,
But
yeah,
but the,
yeah.
but the, but the thing, we're talking past each other. We're not seeing that. Okay, me, I'm polar on that. I don't really. That's not where I'm coming from. That's not the tools that I use. And then for them, they got to think about. They use the, let's say, FE versus a TE person. They're using, well, is it good for the group? Is it fair for the group? How, all that kind of stuff in order to maneuver in the world. Me, I'm just like looking at things like objects, right? And who's a bad person and who's a good person? Nothing, not necessarily, because we know how FE, right? That kind of group think. Is it good for the group? We know where it can lead to. It can lead to all kinds of bad places. Same thing with looking at people as objects, can still lead to a lot of bad places. No one is good, no one is bad, but it's understanding the person next to you and saying, oh, he's just an INTJ. It doesn't mean he's a bad person. He doesn't have to like hanging out with your family, right? Don't try to force him to like hanging out with your family. It's draining, especially as an introvert as well, as an introvert, FE non whatever. It's like, you're killing me. But most people, the FE type people, they're like, oh, the definition of good is liking to hang out with my family. If you don't like to hang out with my family, then you're bad, right? And that causes a lot of problems with people.
And for, well, I want to say this. I think society having a lack of understanding on what you just explained is what creates extremists. Like, shouts out to Moe Factz for educating me on what nuances is. But today's society is extreme. You're extreme left or you're extreme right due to the lack of understanding of INTJ, the whole 9 yards, no FE or FE and all that. Am I correct?
Yeah, you see, here's the thing. Take, for example, someone whom is intuitive, creative, high in openness, okay? They're going to lean maybe a little libertarian, a little open on certain things, especially, let's say, some kind of social norms. They're not so kind of going to be so hard, fast about it, okay? Let's take it to the business world. The reason I like using the business world, number one, because I'm an INTJ, but number two, because you can look at goals that are trying to met, and you see how different people try to meet that goal and how they may miss it, right? So it's a good way of kind of seeing the differences. So in the business world, an intuitive is the person that starts the company, 9 times out of 10, especially if it's a company that does something kind of new and creative. The Steve Jobs, the Elon
Jeff Bezos, Musk, yeah.
All those types of people. They're artists as well, okay? They don't like structure, okay? People who start stuff don't like structure. Starting stuff and structure are opposite. People tend not to think that way. The people who like structure, the accountants, the CEOs, the managers, okay, they tend to be perhaps more sensor types. They're more what you may call conservative. They want to maintain things a certain way, okay? Hence, you need both of them for the company to last, right?
Correct.
So if this thing I just divided cuts across the left-right divide as well, okay? On the left, you tend to have more open-minded artist type. Let's break things up. Let's shake it up. Let's break down that wall. Let's break down this wall, right? But if you just went everywhere breaking down walls, things won't last, right? So you need the more conservative types to be like, hey, hold on. Let's make sure that the last system which you guys just came in and said that's what you wanted, let's run that. Let's make sure we can operate. Do we know why that wall is there? And why do you want to break it down? Let's find out why that wall is there. Let's find out why that tradition, that norm, that role is there before we break it. And can we rebuild it correctly? Do we have the right, those kinds of things, right? So people get extreme, like, oh, those people just want to keep the walls and the chains and they're bad and they're horrible. And then the other side is like, oh, these horrible, they just want to break everything down and they don't like anything and they want to, they hate America or they whatever, right? And it's like, nah, it's just one side being open, free, wanting to break things down and start new things. And then the other side is like, let's maintain it. Guess what? You need both. Because if the maintaining people get their hands on things and just keep it that way, things will calcify. They will atrophy. They'll start to die. They're not going to meet the new demands of the new reality. Because guess what? You have this thing down there. It's solid. But the landscape is always changing. History, the times, the economy, technology, the climate, whatever it may be, is changing underneath you. So you need the ability to kind of shake this thing up a little bit, rejigger it, match the new time, kind of follow things as it goes along. On the other hand, if you let the let's break things up all the time people just rule, then nothing will ever work, okay? And nothing will ever last, because it's just going to be like, oh, no borders, no boundaries. This concept, that concept, who's to say? So both in the business landscape and in the political landscape, we can see just in this particular dimension of openness versus not, how it's a cognitive difference thing. And you need the starter of the company, but you also need the managers of the company.
Oh, so when you were saying that, what came to my mind was, with Steve Jobs being like the 2% within y'all group, breaking the walls and barriers and be like, we're going to create something called a smartphone. And you know how many times that got turned down by other people? And then he just broke the walls and he created a smartphone. And you got people who like structure iPhone 2, iPhone 3, iPhone 4, all the way to what, iPhone 12? That's what you're trying to say?
Yeah, and the thing is, that's why people a lot of times they would say, oh, Steve Jobs was not like a great engineer. He used to just copy other, like they'll get into that. They want to say he is not that structure person, right? Which he's not.
Exactly.
Right? But the non-structured people, what they do is they have a vision, okay? What is the nuts and bolts and how tight do you have to torque down the left corner of the, not so important to them, right? But there is a vision. I know it can happen if we push, if we press. I've seen it. I know, right? We can get this done. And then they force other people, they motivate them, they lead them to follow that vision, right? And then other people then tighten up the loose ends, make sure production is right, make sure the glass comes right from China, so on and so forth. But you need both of them. Sometimes people want to be like, because without the Steve Jobs, those other people who are just all about glass, they'll just be doing the same thing they've been doing forever, right?
Exactly.
It takes the Steve Jobs to come in and then shake it up, and then now they can make new kinds of glass. Otherwise, they're just going to keep on making the same kind of glass. So those types are important. People all want to say, he was just a designer, just a salesman. That, it wasn't. It's not just a just. It's important. They're needed. And it's also a right percentage too, because you don't need too many of them, right? That's why intuitives are not that many, right? You don't need too many to just break the mold. You need more people making that glass, right? And then every once in a while, an intuitive comes in and shakes things up.
Dang, that's like Henry Ford. What do you think about that?
Henry Ford, changing how the whole production process works, how factories operate, and all that kind of stuff. I think, I don't know his type, but probably an intuitive, right? Because it just tends to be the case that these people are the people who start things. They have a kind of a vision. They have no issues with breaking down molds and things being the way they used to be. Okay, they can ride the chaos that comes along with that, because chaos is not just external, it's also internal, right? So intuitives feel less internal chaos in themselves. Well, no, I'm not saying all intuitives. For somebody comes to no, it's a certain kind of, let's say INTJ, for example, or maybe ENTJ, certain kinds like that. Because if you're a feeler intuitive, like ENFP or something like, you might feel a little bit more, right? But like INTJ, ENTJ, whatever thing that kind of shakes up inside you when you're going on the path less traveled, they feel it less, right? In other words, they're more comfortable in the path less traveled. That's their world, because they see an invisible road. Just like we were saying before, they're not in this looking at this cup, looking at that road, looking at this pin, looking at that hammer. For them, it's all a concept anyways. So it's like, well, the road went this way, it might as well have gone that way. It's just a line in their head. It's not a real road even. The road went there, says the sensor, right? That's where the road is. The intuitive guy is like, it's a line. The line could have also gone this way, right? So when you start going that way where there's no real road, the intuitive is more comfortable in there, right? So that's kind of just tying all how this cognitive functions and how they manifest themselves in the world come into play.
That blew my bad at dogs, but that blew my mind. That reminded me of you. You're right. He gotta be intuitive because he failed numerous times, like almost went bankrupt, broke off that, and then finally created the V8 engine block. And my understanding, I didn't understand how, I thought it was like a lot of willpower to keep on failing and not. Matter of fact, he didn't even look at it like failing. He looked at it like, oh, it's the road's that way and that's way. Like kind of like you, like your understanding. That's how you had looked at it. It was a concept, and they feel comfortable when they're taking the path of least. What is it, least resistance or most resistance?
It's the path of most resistance, but it's the path least traveled is what you're looking for, right?
Path of least travel. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Because I had an understanding, like you and him is like kept failing, hitting your head, and even know how to like read or the type of education, but he still had a concept in his mind. So that kind of, you're right.
Yeah. So look, like me, look, I have 1,000 examples like that from my own personal life, right? In terms of like, look, anyone who has achieved any amount of success, that's how it goes, right? You failed a whole lot. That's how it is. No one just hops on a bicycle and starts riding. Okay? Nope. You gotta fall. And what people tend to do is they postpone the fall, right? They're like, let me read about riding bicycles. Let me contemplate. It's like, it doesn't matter. You're just postponing the fall.
You're right.
The sooner you get on the bicycle, in other words, you could decide, okay, I'm going to compress the time into 1 week. I'm going to fall 10 times in 1 week and I'll be done. Or you can be like, oh, I'm going to fall only once a month. And it's going to take you 10 months to learn how to ride a bicycle, right? You're just postponing the time. You got to fall. Okay, now, me, for example, okay, there are many things I've had to overcome, one of which is the eyesight thing. Another is like, the immigrant thing, coming through, flipping your accent thing, all kinds of things I had to kind of knock my head against in order to there were some of it I can't even get into because at some point I'll probably write a book about some of my maneuvers.
Yeah, maneuvers.
Some of my maneuvers, but one thing people would look and they would say, wow, you're so strong, as you were talking about, like that kind of strength thing. For me, it wasn't strength. For me, it's just like, I don't know why you guys think I have to go that way.
Exactly, your mind, just how your cognitive function, yeah.
It's like, no, I don't have to go that way. It's not strength that's pushing me to go this wrong part or individualism, rugged, and I'm just like, no, it's just that I don't gotta do what the rest of you people are doing. I don't see it that way. I'm not so tied to my senses. I'm tied to my intuition, right?
That's a perfect way to put it. I know, like how you say, you got 1,000 of stories, but do you have like one quick personal experience of where people from the outside consider that you were insane, but you from the inside was just looking at different concepts of the road path?
Okay, so you can let me give you two stories. Okay, one it has to do with the way in which. So you heard it here first. I'm actually legally blind, right? Which means that if you do the eye test, it says you can't get a driver's license, you can't do this, you can't do that, right?
Yeah.
And when I first found that out when I came to the United States, I always knew my eyesight sucked, right? But it's in the United States that they kind of give you that particular designation, and therefore you can't do X, Y, and Z, right? There was a path which I was supposed to go down, which was the path of, well, go ahead and apply for this particular kind of disability thing and do that. To me, that was just insane. I was like, no, there are other ways, right? So I'm not going to necessarily say exactly what I do or what I do till today in order to make that happen, in order to sidestep all that stuff. Yeah. But I sidestepped all of it, okay? And obviously, in my day-to-day operations, obviously that's an encumbrance. So I overcome that. When it comes to, let's say, doing my sales job for a company where I sell products, right? It's a free commission. I don't have to show up anywhere, so I'm kind of free. Hence, I can have my engineering company, right? That kind of a thing. People always want to say, well, it's one or the other. Plus, I do the band thing, for example. This kind of chaos writing is very kind of tough for the typical sensor type. People are like, okay, well, how about the conflicts of interest, for example? Those rules thing again that people are all into, like, and I'm like, I'm not even gonna say the way I view conflicts of interest and how to navigate them, but I don't even see it that way. And I know certain things about the reality of how the world works, and also the reality of if you're going to be somebody that does things outside the box, because I'm naturally that way anyways. Right? So I'm like, the people who don't do things outside the box and make new rules, they look at rules in a certain way. I don't look at rules that way. I'm just like, fine. Right? Like, who cares? The rules are made by people in order to protect their incumbent interest anyways. I'm a new person on the scene. I'm going to make my rules. I may fail though. You might catch me. I may fall off, whatever. But that's fine, because I'm fine living in that space of abstraction, the space where there is no road, right? So I would have my employees for my private business help me with work for my sales gig job, right? I'm like, okay, I got this spreadsheet I got to do. I got this presentation I got to make. I'm going to pay this person to do it for me, right? Now, no one thinks, I could pay someone in Brazil $40 to save me 8 hours of work that I don't want to do right now. Okay.
Yes.
That kind of thinking tends not to happen with people who are stuck to this world of like, these are the rules, these are how things are done. It's like, but for me, it's just like, well, why not? Who said I could not? I can. And if it's written down somewhere that I can't, well, trust me, people tend not to enforce those kinds of things anyways. People are too busy. Okay. Like, let's say you work for LinkedIn and your LinkedIn says you cannot create an app because, you're a data analyst, whatever, you're a IT person for LinkedIn. And they're like, you cannot do this. It's in your contract. Do you think LinkedIn is spending their time and their legal resources checking what the hell you're doing? Do you think LinkedIn doesn't have bigger fish to fry? LinkedIn is worried about the competitors coming in or hackers from China breaking down and you think that you are worried that LinkedIn is watching. It's like, no, F that. Go ahead and do it. In the real life, we see, such as Uber, for example. Uber came in, broke all the rules about the taxi industry. And now we like Uber, right? The people who created Airbnb, they undercut the hotels as well. So the idea of, and that's why intuitives tend to do this stuff, right? The idea of, well, these are the rules, ain't the way we operate. Now, you still got to also, it's not supernatural, right? There's a natural part that pushes you in that direction, but you still got to then think. Like, for example, I said, is LinkedIn going to check, right? That's a thinking. It's called TE, extroverted thinking, like how the world actually works. You got to kind of see how the world actually works and then know the risks that you're going to take, and it's going to be calculated risk. But the natural inclination to just go out there into the space, into the path less traveled, that's me all day, constantly doing that all the time.
And I'm glad overall throughout this live, you have made me have a better understanding of that's a cognitive function. In other words, that's just the way that people think. There's many ways that people think, but that specific way is a way that you think.
Yep. And there's a great need for different types again, right? Because like I do a show with Dr. Thunder. Dr. Thunder is an ISTP, to the best of my understanding, right? So Dr. Thunder has got that good SE, which is the sensory, like, first of all, he's a sensor, as you know, but the second one, S, right? But he's a high IQ ISTP, which is great, right? Because like, that way we can relate in that particular regard. But also here's how the complementing happens. Okay, Dr. Thunder is the kind of person that he gets a camera. Okay, like I got my nice new freaking Canon, whatever. You see that? It blurs out.
I peeped that, yeah.
Pretty sweet. So he'll get a camera. He'll probably read the manual of the camera, go online, know all the functions of the camera, right there and then set it up correctly. First time, it's done. Me,
I knew he was about to say that. Yeah, I feel you, man.
That's not how I roll, man. So having someone like Dr. Thunder in my team, or let's say we're doing things together, he will be able to take care of that kind of stuff. Me, I'm procrastinating and thinking and whatever it may be, and I just put the camera good enough. Okay, right there, done. I'm maybe later on, maybe a year later, I learn one function or two, or mess around with it, or move it. I don't like to do this physical world stuff, right? That's the whole
Yeah,
thing about the intuitive, where you're just like good enough for good enough to go. I'm done. I don't want to mess around with much of the physical world. I want to go on the world of ideas, the world of ideas, the world of ideas. So me procrastinating, Dr. Thunder always scheduled. He's got his lists of things. He knows how they work. His microphone is always perfectly tuned and like all that kind of stuff. That's where the great sensors are come in, right? Just like I said with the company, they come in and they fine tune the company. The intuitive is needed to be like, hey, there's this other line we could draw on the road, and I'm gonna go there. I'm gonna draw it. I'm gonna convince people. I'm gonna create a customer base, and then you bring in your sensor types, and they cut it up for you nicely, and they make sure everything works well.
but that one more thing with Jeff Bezos, because he's part of 2% with that cognitive function. There was some footage of him in the 90s where he was having an understanding of the FE, I believe. He was like, it's all about the customers. It's all about what the customer wants.
Mm-hmm.
And people thought from the outside, looking at him, thought he was insane. But to be honest, he's really the 2%, like how your thinking process is. But can you understand? Can you explain to me, did he get the concept of FE?
No, you see, FE is again extroverted feeling. Okay, it really is caring and feeling and caring about the feelings of others. There's another one called introverted feeling, which is about your feelings, right? I'm a FI guy. If Jeff Bezos is INTJ, he's also a FI guy. FI people are the kind of people that get disgusted with other people. Okay, we're like, I don't want to get this piece of trash away from me. I don't want to see you ever again. That's a FI type person. Okay, it has its disadvantages, but it can also help you too. Keep trash out of your life. But FE is people who care about the feelings, the emotions, the fairness of other people. So what he was saying about it's all about the customer, that's what you call TE. That's how the world works. He's a businessman. He's not sitting there like, oh, I care about the customer. It's obviously, I'm right. It's again
It
TE.
worked. It
Yeah,
worked.
because
It fooled me. But
yeah.
when you think about it, when he did some TED talk, he had that FI that slipped up on him, like on some
Oh, really?
people this and that, like certain, like, he had that little disgust look on his face. And I remember it because this book on nonverbal cues on facial expressions. So that was his real personality that leaked out, which I'm not judging, but he fooled me within the 90s though. Go ahead.
Yeah, and Steve Jobs was all FI all the time, just kind of like, yeah, screw you guys, whatever. Like, even sometimes in his live presentation, but that's kind of how Elon Musk is also kind of that way. But the thing is, if you watch my content, for example, you're not gonna be like, oh, this guy doesn't like people. And again, it's not that I don't like people, but you know what? You're gonna see FE displayed because it is a means to an end, right? I know how to talk and smile and do this and that and so on and so forth. But it is not my natural place. Can I ask somebody about their daughter's softball game and seem convincing? Yes. Do I actually care about it is the question. Because there are people who genuinely, and I work with these kinds of people, and you can tell the difference, or I can tell the difference because I see this guy actually cares about this guy and the games that they play and the social gathering, and oh my God, isn't it so nice that we're all here in this picnic, oh family and whatever, all that shit. Like they like that stuff, right? Would I do that as a means to an end? 100%. Yeah, I'll go there and I'll do this, that, and all kinds of formalities, but it's a means to an end. I want to quickly as possible extract myself away from there, though, right?
Mentally
and
draining.
go rest, go relax and recharge, right? But TE is what he was displaying. TE is how you get things done in the world. It's extroverted thinking, right? Introverted thinking is logic. It's just like abstract logic. If then this, then this, then this. TE is like, well, if I want to sell blah, 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 what's the best way? What's the best way to get the customers to the table? What's the best supply chain to use? What's the path of least resistance? How can the company grow? All those kinds of things. And then it's just obvious because it's thinking, it's logical. And it's logical that what the customers want makes sense if you're going to grow the company. So it wasn't that he was just there like, and you can tell the difference between other kind of people who are actually FE because it comes out. They're all like, it's a feeling thing when they say it. It's not even a thing. You're just feeling all over the place. It's like, oh, but the people we must come together and all this kind of thing. It's very different. It's very different.
Yeah, so you could actually see the essence of that, of the emotions with the FE, but with the F, I get what you're saying. But yeah, you could do the little dance, but you trying to secure the end and exit out of that circumstance as soon as possible to recharge mentally, because I understand it is mentally fatiguing.
Yep, it is mentally fatiguing especially for an introvert like myself, mentally fatiguing to be around people a lot. Now, this thing is unfortunate that I'm saying, right? Because INTJ, 2% of the population, relatively smart type people. They get a lot of stuff done. Even though ENTJs tend to be more successful because INTJ is a little bit too intuitive.
So they say, yeah.
However, that inability to really just stay in the midst of people for long periods of time gets misread over and over. You are misjudged over and over, right? In relationships, for example, right? You're always the bad guy. Like, I'm just used to being the bad guy in FE space, the bad guy in like relations, like the person who doesn't care. I'm always the cat. Everyone is a dog. Everyone's a fluffy puppy, right? And here comes the cat, right? And everyone's looking at the cat like the cat didn't do nothing to you, okay? But you're like, well, you think you're better than us, right? I'm like, I'm just being a cat. I'm just a cat. I didn't even say anything to you. Why do you think of that?
I know that gets annoying. I know that gets annoying to you. You don't say nothing, and they just automatically a social norm, man.
Yeah, so it's a tough one, and I think that the more we kind of understand each other, and obviously I can arrange my life such that I don't have to be in those situations so often, and I can arrange my personal relationships such that I'm with somebody that understands what that means. Because the other thing too, if you take it to the relationships level of intimate relationships, there are best kinds of fits with these different types, and the things of like where you complement each other in certain ways, and then there, for example, an INTJ is not going to be attracted to another INTJ in terms of like that kind of sexual dynamics. It's not gonna be there. You'll be like, wow, she's a cool chick. I could talk with her all day, but now I'm not saying you're not gonna, you obviously a guy will do just about anything, right? But that's not what I mean, right? Of course you would, right? That's not what I mean, because of course you would. But it's not like the thing, it's not what gets you going. You're probably more like, as an INTJ, for example, some ESFJ-ish or some kind of sensor feeler, somebody who's like feeling more while I'm more of the thinker type. That's the kind of thing that I find a little bit more exciting per se, or some ENFP. A feeler could be an intuitive, but more of a feeler type. Because two thinkers per se in that kind of male-female dynamic tends not to work very well. And I know some thinker ladies, they always have a feeler or more of a FE. They're more cold type. And then their husband is very like FE. My mom and dad are actually like that. My mom is more of probably a thinker type, right? She's reserved. She's very logical, an introvert. My dad is probably some kind of ENFP or something like that. Gregarious, talking to everybody, feeling this and feeling that, FE all over the place, that kind of stuff. So it doesn't matter which particular gender, but it tends to be the case that feeler, thinker dichotomy is one. And then also the N and the S too. Like the sensor, a nice sensor woman that can take care of your sensory needs while you're up in the clouds tends to work, right? One last thing about that. You see, your second function, in this case for me, for example, is my TE, my extroverted thinking. That's the one that where, that bag of your ego, right? That's the one that really takes up a lot of space in your ego, and you tend to judge people based on that, right? So you tend to like, oh my God, why can't you do that? Or you project that on people a lot. That's the one you should watch out for, and that's the one you should watch out for the person whom you're in a relationship with, right? Because they're going to be judging. That's where their ego is, right? The second function is where the ego is. The first function is just kind of who they are. The second function is a tool, and they go around carrying that tool, hitting everybody with it.
Dang, that's powerful, right? Dang. Like, I got a quick question. Have you watched this movie called Love Don't Cost a Thing, correct?
I haven't watched that.
Oh, never
mind. Is that a recent one?
No, it's not a recent one. It's the one with Nick Cannon and Christina Milian. It contemplated on what you were saying. Like, it goes in alignment with it. About how his father. Hold on, my bad. The dogs ain't crazy.
It's not that loud.
It gets louder after a while. I think they kind of calmed down a little, but I wanted to use that as an example because Nick Cannon's mother in that movie was a thinker and cold, but she was a thinker, and his father was the one who was feeling, who was like, oh yeah, my son's getting into the popularity, he's making people friends and all that. That's what it kind of remind me of. And it's no problem with gender has that though, but once again, when we go to society, it's identity on that, right?
But there are breakdowns in terms of more women tend to be more on the feeler side in terms of just types, right? It is more the case that a man will be a thinker, a sensor man will be a thinker, and a woman will be a sensor woman will be an SF, a sensor guy will be a ST. More than not. INTJ females, for example, tiny, like 0.2 or something % of the population. I haven't Googled it lately, but in other words, you could check it out. Even like the percentage of INTJ women, very rare. So it tends to break down. There are differences in population. It's not just kind of evenly spread across. So you're gonna get more feelers as women, and it's gonna be hard for a thinker woman, as it's also hard for a feeler man, right? For obvious reasons that you can kind of imagine. And I believe it's an INFP. An INFP man is highly misunderstood.
You said INFP?
Yeah, they have FI, first function. They feel a lot, and it's just not what your traditional masculinity image is about, right? So they got a tough time. I'm sure INTJ right. Women get a tough time too.
It's 0.5% now with the women being like that.
Oh,
they said.
I see.
And I can't find no INFP guys that are celebrities right now, except for that guy from the Twilight movie, I think. I think he's from the Twilight movie. He looked like the guy, or Harry Potter, or I don't know. But I get what you're saying, though. It's very rare, though. I can't find it.
Yeah, it's but they're out there, and to a certain extent, whether you know your type or not, you need to know it intrinsically. You need to kind of live your type. Sound like some Deepak Chopra woo type stuff. Live your truth. But basically, understand that thing that you do naturally, whether it be introversion, right, or naturally thinking intuitively, if people start coming at you for it, okay, check them and get rid of them. Here's my FI coming through now. It's like, because it's BS for people to be telling you. Let's say let me go and just stick to a particular type as an INTJ, for people to be telling you that because you're a cat, you're a horrible person. You don't care about people's feelings. You don't want to go, hiking with your family, and you don't like doing Sunday brunches. You're freaking sick and tired of just sitting around and people stuff. Therefore, you're a bad person. Because it tends not to be, I never forced you to come do what I do, right? The thing about the suffering of the intuitive introvert is that people are always trying to pull you to do their thing and judging you negatively because you don't want to do it. You rarely ever want, I don't tell anybody to come do anything with me, right?
Exactly.
I don't tell them what to do.
You.
They don't realize that they're using your energy, right? They're like psychic vampires, literally, right? They're using your energy, your presence, and all that stuff, and they judge you when you don't give it to them. It's very entitled, right?
Yes.
Now I'm like, F all that. I don't care about you and your BS and you wanting to use me for I'm who I am, and if you can't deal with it, because I don't make any demands of you, I don't tell you to come. I don't care what you do, right? But why judge me? Not just, oh, I'm not helping them. It's a moral judgment, right? It's a moral judgment. They're like, actually, you're bad. Not that I care about the moral judgment, but it tends to have some kind of implications. So I just cut those kinds of people. Like, nah, I'm not dealing. You need to be able to, if you don't understand and appreciate me for what I am, because what it tends to be, especially in intimate relationships, is that's what they like about you in the beginning, right? They see, oh, who's this kind of very independent, smart thinking, judge, does the blah, blah, blah type of guy. I like him. And then you want this same guy to be hanging out with you and family. Like, those are two different people.
You just explain it. Then you explain the modern.
Those are two different people. If you wanted the picnic guy, get the picnic guy. No, you went to go find this dark suit wearing brooding guy who's always by himself and making moves in the world, and then you pick him and you want to go put him in a picnic.
And this right here, I think this goes in alignment with the overall title of this live. I may change it, but it's like people put a label on what you just explained yourself being as high value. They go looking for the high value, and they want the high value to do average. Like, I'm about to say the wrong word. When shouts out to Kevin Samuels, you know how you be like, get a guy who's a plumber or a guy who's a, what you call those type of men?
You're talking about blue collar, or you're talking about Kevin or Henry or blue collar. Go ahead.
Yeah. So they want to get a high value. I think what they considering your kind of men and how you move in today's society, they put a label on that and call it high value, and they want to take you and put you in a blue collar social norm. Like picnic table, going out to these events, taking pictures on Christmas Eve at their job and all that. You kind of get what I'm saying? And that's what we having a problem with.
Yeah. So, and if there's any woman listening, it's, if you're going for a particular rare kind of guy, you need to understand that it's going to be a rare kind of life, and that it's 24/7, 16-hour day work life, go, and you will never be number one in his life. The reason why you're never gonna, no woman is gonna be I'm a married guy, okay? And I'm saying that, and I was like, my wife knows. My wife knows she's not number one. How could she be number one, right? She's not number one in my life.
That's gonna hurt a lot of people. I mean, if this was on the Kevin Samuels platform right here, many people watching, they'll be like, how could you? Like, the social norm thing, remember? Yeah, well, go ahead.
But the thing is, it is rare. Well, let me put it, it is understandable. It is 100% understandable, right? Basically, what does it look like when a woman is number one to a man? Generally speaking, that's not what the woman wants in her head. Okay? Because what does she want to do? Yeah, what does she want? She wants to look up to a man, right? She wants him to be bigger, taller, stronger, faster, all these things. And he also wants him to have a clarity of purpose, right? Purpose which is not her, right? Okay? But The mistake is they have a fantasy, and then they want to take that fantasy down and bring it down and be like, oh, now I want you to change your number one to me. But guess what happens if you are foolish enough to make her your number one? What do you think is going to happen?
Your guess is just as good as mine.
She's gonna kick your ass to the curb. She's gonna hate you for it. You're now a simp.
Yeah, okay. You know, I'm pretty sure you heard my previous lies about the simpaholics, the simp chronicles and stuff. Yeah,
you're a simp now. You want to take Superman, you want to turn him into Clark Kent. It's the typical story, right? But it's like, oh, Superman is flying all over the buildings, and it's like, yeah, he's Superman. He's not. You're not Superman's number one. You will never be. Because if you are Superman's number one, he's not Superman anymore. And then you start hating him. Like, oh, he's just one of these regular guys now. But you were trying to force him to be regular. But so I don't play that shit though, because I'm a very hard-headed, kind of strong-willed type of person. Yes, I know what I'm here to do. I'm freaking busy. I got ish to do. I got a singularity of purpose in my life. Okay. And what I'm saying is, women understand this. I'm not saying that. I'm not. It's not like, oh, women don't understand this at all. Like, they're women. They just just thinking like, yeah. I get it. And if I want to play that game, I'm going to get the high value man. Is working all the time. He has his own purpose. I would never be number one in his life, but that's good because he's leading us somewhere. And the goal, the target, the build is the number one. And I'm willing to get in his program and follow. Then that's the role that you play. Because to try to take him away and put him into your program, that's some bullshit.
So you saying like, be like, shouts out to Coretta Scott and let me see, let me do a quick Google search real quick. Shouts out to Coretta Scott and Betty Shabazz. You kind of get my message?
I get what you're saying. You got to look. Now, obviously, the statistical distributions to everything. Now, some women are gonna find it. They're gonna find it difficult to find a man that they can look up to, right? Because they themselves already so kind of in this particular level, right? For various reasons, personality, for example, this high IQ ENTJ woman, for example, it's like she's looking at dudes out here, all these feelers, these guys, people that can barely get stuff, and he's like, damn, like, but. Here comes the part where roles come in, right? Roles, human relationship is one role playing or acting against another role. And also in reality, they play roles. In other words, you need to learn how to play a role. And if that role is the, cooperative, submissive, follow the man role, you play it with the understanding that the man should play his role as well. And obviously, both actors feed upon each other, right? So if you play your role, he can play his role. As opposed to, you show up on stage and you're like, whatever, you play your role. I'm going to just watch you. I'm going to see if you can play it well. It's like, come on, right? So, but the point is, if though you want I want a 1%er, very independent, smart, INTJ, swashbuckling, devil may cry, globetrotting, and then you want to turn him into some kind of domesticated animal? No, that's not how it works. That's not how it works.
So I'm glad it shows your character, your personality, your INTJ. It shows because you just cut right to the problem. And I know you don't care about how other people may look at it. They may think it's arrogant or you being stubborn, but your cognitive function of thinking that's how you think and you see it, and it's understanding. So pretty much you just crack the code, because at the end of the day, these women do know what you're talking about, and they know that's true. They know that's realistic of what you're saying. It's just that you don't play that game though with. I hope I'm making sense.
Yep. Emotions want what they want, regardless of the logic. And if you're going to be a more emotional type, whether you're a woman or a man, right? Now, women tend to be more emotional, okay? So emotions want to take Superman and turn him into Clark Kent, okay? But if she actually wins, right? The logic doesn't work, the puzzle doesn't fit anymore, so she's gonna be unhappy. But it's not that she deceived. The emotions is what led her to want to take Superman all over the place like a handbag, right?
Oh,
It's a feeling, right? She wanted, like, let's take Superman and carry him around like a little puppy. But Superman's not a puppy, right? So if you turn Superman into a puppy, all of a sudden you're gonna look down one day and be like, "Fuck is this puppy?" Right? And you're gonna toss him.
Exactly.
But that's why women should not be leading. Simple.
I feel you with that. I feel how you have an understanding, and it's like, to be honest, your intelligence and your conscious awareness is obviously way above mine, but I'm just so lucky and happy to have an understanding of what you're putting on on here.
Yeah, and women have a definite place, very important role in the existential aspect of things, experiential aspect of things. Let's make it simple. A man builds the house, but the woman makes it a home, right? What makes it a home is that feeling, the experience, the FE. Everybody gets to eat, everybody feels whatever, and Aunt Rebecca's picture is hanging over the mantelpiece, all those kinds of things. Those things are important in terms of the experience of human life, right? But those things cannot be leading, because neither you nor the woman will be happy at the end of the day. Okay, because if you ask every woman, they're gonna say, yes, I want to follow and look up to a man. None of them ever says, I'm sure there's a percentage out there, okay, that would say the opposite. But it is rare that a woman would be like, yeah, I want to lead the man, like I want to lead him by the nose. I want a man that I could look down or look at. It's like, no, they all fantasize about Prince Charming and looking up to Prince Charming, right? So, but at the same time, they have to fight against the emotions, which also want other things. Because it's like, I want to be the lean, mean, cut, six-pack ab person, but I also want to eat a bunch of fried rice and pizza and all that kind of stuff. So it's not like it's crazy, right? It's not crazy. You get what I'm saying?
No, it's not crazy.
You can't have both. That's how the world is. You can't have both. So because some people want to come at the women like, oh, they say this and then they say that. It's normal. We want the six-pack ab and we also want the pizza. But the reality is not going to let us have both. We're going to need to make a decision. We're going to need to bite down, grit down, play the role, get some discipline in order to pick the best, right? Which will be exactly. So that's kind of how it is. That's kind of how it is. And women, when they are in a society that trains them, now if we go back to the kind of whole society thing and how things have been broken down, when they're in a society that has these particular rules and trains everybody and puts people in whips them into shape, if you will, they know this. In other words, they're like, okay, here's what it's going to take to get a protector, provider kind of guy. And even though I may want all these other kinds of things of the heart, but these things are antithetical. These things are like wanting the pizza and the rice and the this and the that, and still wanting to be, it's like, no, I have to sacrifice it in order to be, because submission and cooperation is not easy for women. It is harder for a woman to cooperate than a man to cooperate.
And that's just the human behavior right there, or society.
Let's look at in general. Men will follow men. Men will line up and follow behind General Patton or whatever. They will die following, hierarchy, submitting. It is more natural to us. Women, no. They're gonna girl fight and cat fight and do this and mean girl stuff and so on and so forth. It's more of their survival mode, right? That's kind of how they survive and how they play the game. So because if you use the Bible, for example, just as a source of wisdom from old, it tells the woman to submit because it's not easy for her. It tells the man to love the woman because that's not easy for him either. Okay? They're telling you the things, because they're not going to tell you what's normal and natural. Like, oh yeah, just do what's normal and natural. It's like, no, it's saying, hey, submit. Why? Because that's not the way women operate. Women's social order is not hierarchical. It's not follow and submit. It's not cooperate. It is men that cooperate in the trenches, in the hunting ground, in the war battleground, whatever it may be. That's how we naturally are. A woman is not as submissive. So I understand this. That, oh, it's like, why can't she? It's like, no, it's hard for her to be submissive. But she has to be if she wants to be part of this program. Yeah.
And I'm glad you, real quick, I'm glad you have an understanding of that, and you're not like how some other men will be just going hardcore, like, woman this, woman that. And it's like, hold on, man, chill out. Just, you kind of going above, you know what I'm saying? It's like they have like a hatred thing, a little rage or anger or something. You get what I'm saying? And it'll be to the point where they're projecting their emotions over their logical saying. And then overall, they're not making logical sense. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah. 100%. 100%. Everything, everybody, life is complex, but not so complicated that you can't see the fitting. You always gotta there's it's like a stitching. You look to the left, you look to the right, you look to the left, you look to the right. It's not just one way and then the other way. It's like, no, each person has to give up something, right? And just to use that pizza analogy again, it's like, okay, I want Superman, protector, provider. It's the same thing like I want hard body, rock, solid, gymmed up, and so on and so forth, six-pack. But I also want pizza and so on and so forth. Like, you want it. You can't say, no, I don't want it. No, you do want it. But you got to sacrifice. So you got to sacrifice that wanting to kind of bring him down to puppy dog that you can kind of carry around and pet and show everybody, right? You got to sacrifice that part. No, he's not. You're not going to be his number one, because if you are his number one, then he's not Superman. It's simple. If you want, it's just like, if you wanted one of those guys in your picnics, pick one of the guys in your picnics. Don't go coming to me and be like, oh my God, he's so this and that and all off on his own and doing his own thing, and then trying to drag me to your picnic.
Correct. That's all you're trying to say. That's overall what you're trying to say. But you gotta do this little cha-cha dancing, the jazz dance. You gotta do the whole 9 yards to, if you're willing to get your message and your logical point across to like the masses. Shouts out to Kevin Sanders for doing that. But yeah, appreciate y'all in the chat though. They definitely showing love for real. And I definitely appreciate you giving your time coming on this live. I don't want to hold you too long, but is there any other topic you want to cover though, or what you want to speak on?
No, I think that we cannot just willy-nilly introduce another topic, but I think that overall, what we have said here is that, number one, there are rules, roles, games that we play, right? Whether it be the national game with the national border, with the national anthem and the national put your hand on your chest and whatever, right? And that these things inform our identity, but we need to be clear about all these things which are putting into our identity bag, because those things can be attacked. Somebody can then call you F you America, F you ADOS, F you this. And because you have that thing in your identity bag, now you're upset. So, but you got to learn how to dodge these artificial things, which, by the way, they're artificial because you could be born somewhere else and with a different bag full of different contents.
Different voice in your head. Yeah.
Totally different voice in your head, right? So it also then extends into the understanding of the interpersonal in terms of our cognitive functions. We need to know that this person, whom let's say is the free, more open, more entrepreneurial, more intuitive type, is needed to break things up and to start new things. But you need the more rigid, conservative manager, accountant, CEO type in order for things to sustain, in order for things to last, in order for things to be solidified. And if you have either one of them in full control, things don't work. In the one hand, if the people keep breaking things, there's nothing that lasts. There's no real stability. And on the other hand, if the people who just want to keep things rigid, then things atrophy, they become corrupt, and they don't meet the demands of the ever-changing landscape, right? And then finally, okay, just to reiterate the point that just because you in other words, there's always trade-offs. Okay, it is not, and for men out there, it is not easy for women to submit. Don't think it's easy. Okay, otherwise it would not have been. And all you got to do is think of how men operate. Men fall in line very easily.
Yes.
They follow leaders very easily. Women tend not to. So it's not that, oh my God, why is she being so stubborn and not one that. I'm not saying it's right that she shouldn't submit, be cooperative with a man. No, I'm not. It's not an excuse. I'm just saying that it is not some kind of thing that just comes natural to them and then they're just kind of fighting it. No, women don't follow. That's not how they roll. Look at them. Look at how they operate amongst themselves. They don't like to follow. They don't like to follow each other. Men are the ones that are organized in hierarchies, follow the leader, go die in the trenches for whomever, and all that kind of stuff. So that is one key difference that needs to be seen. And also, if you want the rare guy, you want Superman, don't think you're going to turn Superman into a puppy dog. Don't think that you're going to make Superman Superman is having you as his number one. As I said, I'm married. My wife knows, okay, that she is not my number one priority. If she was my number one priority, she would not like me, right? Because I got the plan. I'm going somewhere. I've always been that way. That's how you met me. That's why you like me. It's my role as a man to lead us there. You get with the program. Everybody's happy. You get to look up to somebody, and I get to do my thing. I get to take the responsibility. Yeah.
Don't get it twisted, y'all, when he say that, because if he definitely make his significant other the number one priority, I'm pretty sure there wouldn't be no roof over his head or their head. That's what he's trying to say. It. That's all.
Exactly. If a man that has a woman as his number one priority is not good to himself, the group, or the woman, it is no good to anybody. But if he has his goal as his priority, then there will be protection, there will be provision, there will be everything. And guess what? The woman gets a man to look up to, which is what they want.
Case closed. I appreciate you for stopping by and spending your time, because you and I know that time means more than the currency that's being projected in society. Like how you said earlier, you would rather pay $40 for somebody in Brazil to take 8 hours of doing work instead of you doing it, because at the end of the day, time is more valuable. Time is priceless.
100%. Yeah, anytime. Maybe perhaps another month we come back and we can chop it up again.
Yes, sir. All right. Appreciate y'all for the chat, and I'm gonna let you go on, and I'm definitely gonna take care of the goddamn little chihuahuas real quick. But yeah, until next time, my brother.
Alrighty.